Okay, for part B, okay, normally what Cambridge will ask you is use notes and sketches to show two different methods of doing something. Okay, this varies every single time. Sometimes you can refer to knowledge that you have from materials theory and paper construction theory. At times you just have to use some initiative. This is really where they catch you out sometimes, so it's important that you can think creatively with respect to the scenario they're giving you. Okay, so here they're asking you, use sketches and notes to show two different methods of making a flat pack 3D model pop up when released from an envelope. So straight away you've got to think about something that's flat, and that will obviously pop up in some respect. So I think the first thing we probably do here is look at the kind of spring style system, almost like an accordion. You've all seen an accordion being played, okay? It kind of opens and closes, you kind of have that zigzag construction. Now how do we draw that? What I would probably do here, draw a side view of the house, okay? Also draw the base. Now I'm going to draw them quite close to each other, okay, but slightly staggered. And in between, I'm just going to add some zigzags, okay, on all the corners, and then just connect those up, okay. So it almost looks like it's being compressed. So we can do a little arrow here to show. Obviously this can be pulled apart. Normally what you might find is a piece of string tied around it, normally with maybe a bow as well. Okay, so this is untied. And then what we have, so we can say here, spring system allows pop-up construction. Okay, there are many methods here. You could think about springs, you could think about elastic bands, you could think about some kind of lever system that allows this to happen. I normally tend to advise students to go for the simplest method, and I think in this particular case it's quite a simple method, okay? And we can also show the house constructed, okay? So if we draw it again, okay, and then what we'd do, we would show it constructed like this. Okay, connect these two up, connect this up, connect this up. And what I tend to do is just draw a few lines on there to show the construction. And show obviously this has been pulled upwards. Okay, so that works as one method. The second method, feel free to be creative with this. I mean, we could go for a balloon, for example. So we can have a similar method as this one, where we have balloon. Okay, so we can go for balloon, double O, insertion. So we have a very similar package to before. We could even still go for the same technique with the zigzags, but we show obviously we have a balloon. Let's draw it completely flat. Actually, I think that's probably a better idea here. So I will draw a balloon with a completely flat version of the greenhouse profile. Give a little bit of thickness, a few lines, okay. Blow into balloon to construct, okay. And if you want to, we could even show a small version over here. Make sure you don't go outside the lines if possible. We could draw a nice tiny little sketch here of the balloon inserted, but then we have the house constructed. Draw a little arrow there to show the direction which it increases. Okay, so there we have it. Now what's very important with section B is that you use notes and sketches. If you don't, then you're in trouble, okay? There's 2 marks for the 2 sketches and 2 marks for the notes. Now hopefully by doing something like this you could get full marks. Every case is different in this case. I've seen questions come up where they ask you to come up with 2 different shapes that could be used, 2 different ways of joining card, 2 different ways of attracting a customer's attention to a point of sale, if that's the particular question you get, 2 different ways of displaying a product inside a package. So they're probably looking at vacuum form trays and display windows. There are many different scenarios that come up with this part B, and it's important to kind of practice and make sure you're up to scratch with that. Right. For section C, okay, this is where we have to develop and sketch 3 ideas for the 3D model. Now, there are some rules you need to follow in this particular instance. Okay, the first thing is to understand what's being marked. Now, for section C, okay, we get marks for the quality of your communication. Okay, now if you're doing very simple drawings, you're going to get the lower end of the marks. Okay, the higher the quality of your drawings, the more marks you're going to get. So if you include a variety of techniques such as shading and thick and thin line technique and additional detail drawings, you're going to get a higher mark. If you go for a very simple outline drawing with very few techniques, you're going to get less marks. Annotation is important, as is color, and this is very important for you to follow that. And also the accuracy and the suitability of your solutions as well. For example, if your solutions are all very similar, you're going to get lower marks. If your solutions are very different, you're going to get better marks. So let's consider this. Right, now what I tend to do as well, in most cases I'll use this to help me with my first idea. So we have a good platform to work with here. Okay, we've got the kind of pop-up construction greenhouse. I think it's important that we think about that. So what we're going to do, we're going to start by sketching it. Now, if we sketch in 3D, straight away we've used the technique that's going to help with our drawing. So what I tend to do, I like to sketch in isometric personally. I think it works well. You know, it is a technique at the end of the day, and the examiners tend to respond quite well to it. Okay, so I have one part of my house. Okay, this is the top. Now here you have a surface. We can always look back here, and we've actually said that it must include a space to add company info. So, you know, maybe we can think about, you know, how we're going to lay this out. What I might do here. You know, so we can have maybe logo. So company logo could go here. I'll just put the word logo. Greenhouse specialists. Space for a website. Okay, so website would go here. And maybe a space for a telephone number. Maybe a map of their location. Okay, so this could be a map. And maybe here, you know, some information about the services that they provide. Okay, so we've got a nice basic outline. Okay, up here, for example, we could even have a picture of the greenhouse they give you in the question. So you've got the picture in the question. Sometimes they use that to help you to kind of create some kind of visuals, some surface graphics. Okay, so we've got the top of our design. Okay, now in terms of this spring system, I'd like to show that, to be honest. I think that works quite nicely. So from all your corners, create like a rough jagged line. Okay, and then some lines in between. Now, in terms of your drawing techniques here, obviously these are going to be, you know, coming in and out, so you might want to add a little bit of shading to the edges to kind of give it that 3D effect. Okay, now in terms of time, okay, you've got to be very careful here. I mean, first section, you should be able to do that in 2 to 3 minutes. Here, let's allow the full 4 minutes. This is only 12 marks. I wouldn't spend too much time on this section. And a method that works, tried and tested, is actually just to start with one idea, go forward and evaluate it, and then come back and do the rest of your ideas. Okay, now, so we've got the outline of the design. Okay, it's a very simple design. The next thing I'd probably advise you to do here is to actually add the thick and thin line technique. Now, if you're not sure how that works, refer back to one of my previous videos where that's explained. But it basically involves putting a thick line around the perimeter of your 3D shape, particularly where we can't see another edge. Okay, so we've got that. Remember, this is sketching, okay? It's not really about accuracy. It's more about communicating your ideas and making sure we've got a good solution here, okay? So this obviously potentially pops up. What I'd like to draw here is actually a piece of string, okay, to show that's what ties it together when it goes in the envelope. And what I like to do is actually draw the envelope, if possible, over here so we can actually show how this fits into the envelope. So you're basically describing here how you're creating a solution. Now this is called an additional detail sketch. Can be quite useful. So this is our envelope. And we can even show how that fits into the envelope. Okay, so we've got an additional detail sketch there showing how that fits in. Here we could also add some color. Okay, I think color is important here. Let's maybe take the green color and let's think about maybe what kind of color scheme we could apply here. Perhaps actually, because it's a greenhouse, we can use a bit of green and a bit of blue. Important to think about color scheme here. Now when you color, you don't necessarily have to color things fully. Good to get a bit of gradient shading in there. Even some hatching, to be honest, is a good method. So on your map, for example, normally on maps we have this symbol, don't we? It's like a circle, like a pin. Yeah. So maybe we can show that. Add a bit of blue. There we go. We've got a map, telephone and website. Maybe we can add some lines to divide those. Okay, and it's starting to come together. Maybe for the sides here we could add some blue colour in, obviously to represent the clear, transparent part of the design. Okay, and next come the annotations. Now what do I advise in terms of the annotations? Maybe a little bit of colour, measurements. So, how big is this going to be? If the envelope is A3, let's think about a piece of A3 paper. You've got one in the exam, so you can easily refer to that. We're talking 42 centimeters by, I think, 29, am I right? Yeah, okay, so we've got to think about the size of the A3 envelope and how big this is going to be. So the full length is probably going to be about 41 centimeters, yeah, or 410 millimeters. Always good to add your dimensions in millimeters if you can. The width of this part is not going to be as wide as this, so make sure you show that. It's very important. So we're probably talking, if that's 29, we're probably talking about 20. The whole width of the whole thing is probably going to be about 29. So 200 millimeters, 290 millimeters. So this makes it fit in the envelope. And this is probably going to go, if that's 410, we're probably talking about 250 millimeters this way. Material, we want something that folds well. So folding boxboard material. Maybe we can explain the spring stroke pop-up design allows easy construction, fast and easy construction, fits comfortably into A3 envelope. Space front for company info. That's the front. Okay, we can even look at the back. So maybe a smaller additional detail sketch. Okay, this is idea number one. Sometimes it's good to kind of make that clear as well. For the back, okay, we can have maybe a price list, okay, of their 3 best-selling greenhouses. So, best sellers. These are all pictures. A little picture symbol can be quite handy here. Okay, so on the back we can even explain here. Back of 3D model gives details of best selling products. Okay, so that's your first idea. Potentially, we could even talk about how it's fastened. Okay, we've kind of taken the idea from this side, but that's okay. That's perfectly acceptable because it's been developed into something a little bit more realistic. So we could talk about here, design of 3D pop-up greenhouse, secured with tied string. Okay, and I think potentially there we've got a good idea. Okay, it's not the most creative idea in the world, it's not the best drawn, but obviously we've got to take into consideration the time that we have, but it works well as an idea. Okay, now the second and third idea need to be very different. Okay, not necessarily in terms of the shape in this case, because we kind of know what a greenhouse looks like, but certainly we have to think about the actual concept. Okay, so in the second instance we may want to think about not using a pop-up system, but actually making it a flat pack that's constructible. So your second design, okay, and remember here you've got space for 3 designs. I've done this one a little bit big just so you can see it, to be honest. It's very difficult with the camera otherwise, but you know, this is good enough for an idea. I think we've got, you know, some good techniques going on. If you're a bit worried about your drawing, okay, a shadow behind it, that adds an extra drawing technique. Okay, so theoretically here I've used a 3D drawing, I've made it isometric, I've used the thick and thin line technique, I've added a shadow, I've also made it, I've actually coloured it. So we've got a good range of techniques in the drawing, and that's what they're looking for. Now, for the second idea we need to be very different. So I'm going to do this on the back, where they've allocated the space for that. And obviously here you need to do 3 ideas, so just be aware of that. With the second idea, let's try and think about how we're going to make it very different. So in this case, I'm going to sketch the model. I'll try and change very little about the actual shape of the house because that's been given to us really. Okay, so this is the front. This is the back. Okay. Now, we can think about a comb joint system here. Perhaps this could be made in different parts. So we've actually got part 1, part 2. Potentially this is part 3. So we've got times 2 of these. Okay. We've got 2 sides. Times 2. We've got 2 for the top, which are slightly smaller. Times 2. And we have a base. Times 1. Okay, so theoretically all of these together could make this. Now, in terms of the actual design, we could use a comb joint. Now, how would you show a comb joint? Now, what we need to do here think about how it would be constructed. Okay, so if you look here, I've actually shown that these 2 slot into each other. It's handy to have an eraser to hand because actually we don't want to show here any of the lines that go through. So once you've got that, we can go over that again. Okay. Draw a fine line there just to show the bend. Okay, so there we have it. We've got the comb joint. Now even here at the top, obviously we want to show that. So in this case, it's going to be very simple to do. It almost fits together like a puzzle. Okay, there we have it. Okay, and obviously we want to continue with that up at the top. Now we could take a while to draw this more accurately, but to be honest, I think we've kind of shown off the design. Okay, here we could talk about the comb joint. Okay, we'll just draw one. We'll draw this as a piece. We can draw arrows showing how that fits into this. Okay, so comb joint for easy construction. Okay, so this is what they're looking for in terms of your idea. Okay, this is the development side, this is the design. Now when we get to this point, we can start thinking about maybe because this is a greenhouse, maybe what we could do, we could actually have a display window. Okay, just like you'd have in packaging. 1, 2. Okay, here you've got maybe an extra space for information. Okay, inside the box, if you've got display windows, it's going to end up being clear, obviously, so we want to show that line. Even the roof, we would have probably some display windows here. Okay, remember this is the initial concept. Later on, if this is the design that you pick, you get the chance to develop this further and show more information, okay? But we've got that. Maybe at the front of the greenhouse, we could have a little door. Again, this could be made from transparent plastic, okay? Acetate, whatever we want to call it. Okay, so we've actually shown that aspect of the design. Remember, if we have clear display windows, we want to show the inside lines as well as the outside lines and show that's made from acetate. So we've got another basic idea here. Again, similar techniques, please. Make sure you add that lovely thick line around the edge. Make sure you add that color. Okay, and maybe think about your info as well. So in this particular case, we've got info, we've got logo, we can have some contact information here. Logo, it's a company logo. Here we're going to say here a transparent window, potentially made from acetate. Transparent window. Now in terms of material for this, obviously it's going to have to be quite a rigid and thick material. We could probably go for foam board. So we could say here foam board for lightweight and rigid properties. Again, let's chuck a shadow in there as well. It's never going to do any harm. Think about the dimensions again. So potentially here this could be a little bit bigger because in theory the biggest side is probably going to be, the biggest part of the box is probably going to be the side. So that potentially needs to fit in an A3 envelope. So we're talking probably here, let's call it 40 centimeters or 400 mm. Here we're probably talking 25 to 50 mm. So the total height, let's say this is going to be, so if that's 250, this is probably going to be 200. And the width, we're probably talking 200 here as well. And we've got a design. Okay, so this is the point now where you need to start thinking about your colouring. Okay, greenhouse. Greenhouse sails. Add a splash of colour. Now what you can do, so another nice technique is if we're adding colour, add a nice bit of gradient colour. So start dark, and as you come down, just get lighter. For this side we're going to start dark at the bottom and get lighter as we come up. Okay, and there we have it. You know, a nice basic simple design. It's not great by any means, but it does the trick and it kind of explains what we need here. Okay, so we've got made up from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 parts. Let's just check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, correct. Which join using finger slots. We've got materials, nice and simple. We've labelled all the information. We've explained that we've got some display windows here. And there we have it. Okay, nice and simple. This all folds and goes into an envelope, so we could also show that if we wanted to. So I'm actually going to show the envelope here in a bit more detail. So there's your envelope. And we can actually show here. Perhaps that's too thick, we want to keep them nice and thin. 7 parts inserted into an A3 envelope. Okay. Maybe instructions. Pictures. And instructions, step 1, step 2. Instructions added to show construction method. There we go. Okay, so we've got a second idea there. Again, not great, but obviously space for development. Now, looking at section D, what do we do? Okay, we've only got 2 ideas here. We're going to evaluate those and maybe leave the third one, and we can come back to that later, or I'll leave that to you guys. So, what we have here, we've got 4 criteria that we can evaluate against. So, easy to construct, space to add company info. Okay, which one's got more space? We can look at the 2 and think, this one contains display windows, so there's not going to be as much space perhaps as the first one because we don't have any display windows, so that's something to think about. But then again, this one doesn't have the space here because we have the kind of corrugated section. Must be made from sturdy materials. Is this sturdy? Not so much. Okay, I think the second one is slightly more sturdy. Compact in size. I think this one, because it's made out of a thinner material, actually is going to be a lot more compact. So let's look at these criteria and use them to help evaluate. So number 1, okay, idea 1, a positive, okay? Now what I tend to do is I can put pluses and minuses, ticks and crosses, smiley face, sad face. The first thing in the positive one is it can be due to the material used can be very compact when flattened for mailing. That's a positive. Okay, a negative, I would say, looking at this, it's not as sturdy as idea number 2. So minus. Not as sturdy when constructed as idea 2. And we can always add a third one in there just for extra effect. Another positive is very quick and easy to construct, isn't it? Yeah? So, sorry, I've got 2 here. I shouldn't have done that. Should be another positive. Quick and easy to construct. Okay, the second idea. So we've got 2 positives and negative here. That's great because what the mark scheme actually wants to see. I'll even show it to you. If we look at D, evaluation of each idea's at least 3 evaluations up to 2 marks each. So if you've got all 3 of your evaluations, the 2 marks, I'd say it's for a positive and a negative point of each design. Idea 2, okay, positive, sturdy when constructed due to rigid materials being used. A negative of this is going to be more complex to manufacture because obviously we've got to include the display window. So negative, complex to manufacture due to display window. And another negative, time consuming to construct. There are loads more here we could use. We could talk about the fact that actually it's quite bulky to be sent in an envelope. With the 7 parts, that could probably be potentially, if you're using foam board, you know, up to maybe 2 inches thick. So this becomes more of a package than an envelope. You know, but a positive of this, I think, actually has more visual impact and represents a greenhouse better than the first idea. But you know, you've got all these ideas to think about. But the point I want to make here is make sure you've got positives and negatives, and make sure you use the criteria in part A to help you evaluate how well have you met these points, and if you haven't, why not? Explain that. This is probably the easiest mark in the whole exam. Which idea are you going to choose to take forward? I'm certainly going to take this idea to take forward because there's a lot to explain in terms of construction, and construction is what's going to get you the marks in section E. So that's very important. Don't pick a complicated design, pick a simple design, but where there is potential to explain construction. So Obviously, if we had a third idea, we could do that. Make sure you do include 3 ideas in your exam. Here we haven't got time for that today. So chosen idea is going to be idea 2. Make sure they are numbered. That is very important. If you don't number your ideas, then you're going to have problems. And the reasons, I would say here, the model has a greater visual impact. The model is more durable, and what else could we say here? And represents a greenhouse due to display windows. I think here, as long as you give a good justification, the examiner should be generous enough with their marks.